My parents threatened to call CPS on me if I didn't cut off my daughter, the same one they took from my arms while I was still on pain meds. When I begged them to stop, my mother hissed, "We let you be part of this family again. Don't push your luck." I just stared at her. That was 4 months ago. Yesterday, she opened a letter, went completely still, and hasn't eaten since. Ever since I was little, my parents drilled into me that family reputation was everything. We were respected in our community, church leaders and PTA presidents and charity organizers. We didn't have scandals or teenage pregnancies or anything that might make people whisper until I got pregnant at 17. Jake and I had been together for 3 years. We weren't some random hookup or mistake. We loved each other and wanted to keep our baby. I had this whole vision of us as a young family making it work against the odds. That dream lasted exactly 1 day after telling my parents. They sent me to live with my aunt 6 hours away. No discussion, no consideration of what I wanted. Just packed my bags and shipped me off like I was contaminated. For 7 months, I lived in exile while my belly grew with the daughter I'd already named Judy. Jake tried to visit, but they threatened his family's business. He tried to call, but they blocked the numbers. By the time Judy was born, I'd been completely isolated from everyone who might have supported my choice to keep her. The adoption papers were signed while I was still on pain medication. 48 hours later, they took her from my arms. I begged and screamed and threatened to call myself, but nothing mattered. She was gone, and I was sent home to pretend it never happened. Within a year, my sister Patricia had her first baby. Suddenly, my parents were over the moon about grandchildren. They threw huge parties and took thousands of photos and bragged to everyone about their growing family. The same people who called my baby a shameful mistake were now acting like Patricia invented motherhood. And guess who became the built-in babysitter? Patricia had 4 kids in 6 years. My brother Michael had 3. Every family event meant I was watching the kids. Every date night meant I was on call. Every vacation meant I was the unpaid nanny while the real parents relaxed by the pool. 20 years of birthday parties for kids who weren't mine. 20 years of school plays and soccer games and bedtime stories. 20 years of being told I was so good with children, while the same people reminded me I'd proven I wasn't fit to be a mother. They knew exactly what they were doing. Every comment about how I'd never experienced real motherhood was a knife twisted in an old wound. Every time they dumped their kids on me, it was a reminder that I was good enough to raise their children, but not my own. Last year, something finally broke inside me. I hired a private investigator with money I'd saved for 5 years. 3 months later, I was looking at photos of a beautiful 20-year-old woman who had my eyes and Jake's smile. Judy had been searching for me too. Our first meeting was everything I'd dreamed about for 2 decades. She didn't hate me. She understood why I'd given her up. She wanted to know her birth family and build a relationship. I should have known bringing her to Christmas dinner was a mistake. The moment I introduced her as my daughter, the room went silent. Patricia's face twisted into something ugly. My mother gripped her wine glass so hard I thought it would shatter, and my father just stared at Judy like she was a ghost. They pulled me into the kitchen for an emergency family meeting. That's when they showed me exactly who they really were. If I didn't cut Judy out of my life immediately, they would destroy us both. They'd call CPS and claim I'd been inappropriate with their children. They had a story prepared with dates and details and even coached statements from the younger kids. 20 years of free childcare, and this was my reward. 20 years of raising their kids while mourning my own, and they were ready to destroy me for wanting a relationship with my daughter. I stood there in my mother's kitchen, surrounded by photos of grandchildren I'd helped raise, pictures from vacations I'd made possible by babysitting, report cards I'd helped achieve through hours of homework help. A whole life spent serving a family that saw me as nothing more than convenient help. They gave me 1 hour to make Judy leave and never come back. 1 hour to choose between the daughter I'd lost and the family I'd served. 1 hour to decide if their threats were real or if they were bluffing. I walked back to the living room where Judy sat laughing with cousins she'd never know. She looked so happy, so complete, so unaware that the people smiling at her were prepared to destroy everything. The clock was ticking. 55 minutes left to make a choice that would change everything. Looking at my daughter's face, I knew exactly what I had to do. I took a deep breath and walked back to the living room. My hands shook as I approached Judy, who was still chatting with my cousin's teenage daughter about college applications. The normalcy of their conversation made my stomach turn. Here was my daughter, finally in my life after 20 years, and my family was ready to rip her away again. I touched Judy's shoulder gently. She looked up at me with those familiar eyes, the same shade of brown that stared back at me in the mirror every morning. My throat tightened. How could I tell her what was happening? How could I explain that the people serving her cookies and asking about her major were threatening to destroy us both? Patricia appeared in the doorway, arms crossed. She made a show of checking her watch, then held up 4 fingers. 40 minutes left. My sister, who had dumped her kids on me every weekend for 2 decades, was now counting down to my destruction. The irony wasn't lost on me. I guided Judy to a quieter corner of the room. My mind raced through possibilities. Could I really send her away? After searching for 5 years, after finally finding her, could I just tell her to leave and never come back? The thought made me physically ill. Michael wandered over, drink in hand. He glanced between Judy and me, then leaned in close. His breath smelled like bourbon. He whispered something about family loyalty and walked away. Even my brother, who usually stayed neutral in family drama, was choosing sides. I watched my parents through the kitchen doorway. They stood together, united in their threat. My mother kept dabbing at her eyes with a tissue, playing the victim. My father had his phone out, probably ready to make good on their CPS threat. They'd rehearsed this. They'd prepared statements from the kids. They'd been ready for this moment. The younger kids ran through the room, chasing each other with new toys. Patricia's youngest, Emma, stopped to show me her doll. I'd taught her to tie her shoes. I'd read her bedtime stories when Patricia was too tired. I'd been there for her first day of kindergarten, and now her mother was using her as a weapon against me. Judy noticed my distress. She touched my arm, concern written written across her face. She asked if everything was okay. I wanted to scream that nothing was okay, that nothing had been okay for 20 years. Instead, I forced a smile and told her I needed to handle something. I walked to the bathroom and locked the door. My reflection looked haggard. 20 years of serving this family had aged me. 20 years of watching other people's children grow up while mourning my own. 20 years of being told I wasn't mother material while being trusted with their most precious possessions. My phone buzzed. A text from Patricia. 30 minutes. I splashed cold water on my face. Options ran through my mind. I could comply, send Judy away, go back to being the family servant. I could call their bluff, risk the CPS investigation, hope truth would win. I could leave with Judy, cut ties with my family completely. Each choice felt impossible. Back in the living room, I found Judy looking at family photos on the mantle. Pictures of Patricia's kids at various ages. Michael's family at Disney World, my parents' anniversary celebration. Not a single photo included me, despite being present at every event. I was always behind the camera, never in the frame. Judy pointed to a photo from last Christmas. She asked about the family traditions, wondering if she might be part of them next year. The hope in her voice broke something inside me. She didn't know she was standing in a house full of people who saw her as a threat. She didn't know her existence challenged their perfect family narrative. My mother emerged from the kitchen. She approached Judy with a fake smile, the one she used at church functions. She made small talk about Judy's adoptive parents, asking probing questions. Each word dripped with judgment. She was gathering ammunition, looking for weaknesses to exploit. I stepped between them, cutting the conversation short. My mother's mask slipped for a moment, revealing the cold calculation beneath. She'd done this before, 20 years ago. She'd smiled and promised everything would be okay while orchestrating the removal of my newborn daughter. Now she was doing it again. Patricia's husband, Tom, tried to lighten the mood with a joke. Nobody laughed. Even he could feel the tension crackling through the room. He retreated to the den where the other men were watching football, escaping the family drama he'd married into. 20 minutes left. Patricia held up 2 fingers this time, making sure I saw. My sister, who had called me at 3 a.m. when her first baby wouldn't stop crying, who had relied on me for every school project, every sick day, every marital argument that required an emergency babysitter. She was enjoying this. I thought about all the times I'd covered for them, all the lies I'd told to protect their reputation. When Patricia's oldest got caught shoplifting, I took the blame. When Michael crashed Dad's car hammered, I said I was driving. When Mom's affair almost came to light, I helped bury the evidence. I'd been their fixer, their scapegoat, their servant, and this was my reward. Threats and ultimatums, destroy my relationship with my daughter or be destroyed myself. Nothing quite says Merry Christmas like your family threatening to frame you for crimes while you're trying to reconnect with your long-lost daughter. Now that's what I call holiday spirit with a side of emotional blackmail. The same people who had taken her from me 20 years ago were trying to do it again. Only this time, I wasn't a scared 17-year-old on pain medication. Judy excused herself to use the restroom. The moment she left, my family closed in. They spoke in hushed, urgent tones. Dad reminded me about the CPS threat. Mom mentioned how devastating it would be for my reputation. Patricia added that I'd never see her kids again. Michael just shook his head, disappointed in my selfishness. I stood there, surrounded by people who shared my blood but had never shared my pain. They spoke about family loyalty while threatening to destroy me. They preached about reputation while planning false accusations. They claimed to protect children while weaponizing them against me. 15 minutes. The countdown continued. I could see Judy returning from the bathroom, stopping to admire more family photos in the hallway. She was studying them intently, probably trying to see where she fit in this family tree. She had no idea she was looking at the people who had severed her branch before it could grow. My father pulled out his phone again, showing me a contact, a lawyer friend who handled CPS cases. He'd already consulted about the best way to make accusations stick. They'd thought of everything. 20 years to plan their defense against this moment. I felt something shift inside me. The same feeling from last year when I'd finally hired the private investigator. A breaking point. A moment of clarity. 20 years of being their obedient servant had earned me nothing but threats. 20 years of raising their children had given them ammunition to use against me. Judy returned to the room. She could sense the tension now. The fake smiles had worn thin. The hostile energy was palpable. She looked at me with confusion, wondering what had changed in the few minutes she'd been gone. I wanted to protect her from this, but I also wanted her to see them for who they really were. 10 minutes. Patricia made a show of gathering her children, telling them it was almost time to leave. She spoke loudly about how some people didn't belong at family gatherings. Her kids looked confused. They'd been having fun with their new cousin. They didn't understand why Mommy was suddenly angry. My mother started clearing dishes, banging them louder than necessary. She muttered about ungrateful daughters and family embarrassments. Each word was meant to cut, to remind me of my place. The woman who had held me as a baby was now holding me hostage. I thought about Jake. We'd tried to reconnect after I found Judy, but too much time had passed. He'd married, had other kids, built the life we might have had. He supported my relationship with Judy but couldn't be part of it. Another casualty of my family's reputation management. 5 minutes. My father stood by the front door, hand on the knob, ready to show us out, ready to close the door on his granddaughter for the second time. The man who had taught me to ride a bike was prepared to run me over to protect his image. I looked around the room one last time, at the house where I'd grown up, at the people who had shaped me, controlled me, used me, at the photos that told a story I wasn't part of, at the life I'd built in service to people who saw me as nothing more than convenient help. Then I looked at Judy, my daughter, the baby they'd stolen from my arms, the young woman who had searched for me just as desperately as I'd searched for her, the missing piece of my heart that had finally been returned. She stood there, uncertain but trusting, waiting for me to make this right. The clock struck the hour, time was up. My family watched, waiting for my decision, waiting to see if I'd learned my lesson, waiting to see if 20 years of control had broken shaken me completely. I took Judy's hand. It was warm and solid and real. After 20 years of holding other people's children, I was finally holding my own daughter's hand. The feeling gave me strength I didn't know I had. I cleared my throat. Everyone leaned in, expecting surrender, expecting me to send Judy away like a good, obedient daughter, expecting the same compliance I'd shown for 2 decades. Instead, I squeezed Judy's hand and prepared to speak the words that would change everything. I announced that Judy and I were leaving together. The room erupted. My father slammed his hand on the table. My mother dropped her wine glass, red liquid spreading across the white carpet. Patricia's face turned purple with rage. Michael shook his head in disgust. The younger kids stopped playing, sensing the adult tension. My parents blocked the doorway. Dad's face was stone. Mom's tears had dried, replaced by cold fury. They reminded me of their threat, their prepared statements, their lawyer friend. They had 20 years of my babysitting documented, 20 years of me alone with their grandchildren, 20 years they could twist into something sinister. Patricia pulled out her phone, showing me a video. Emma sitting on a couch, coached to repeat words about inappropriate touching. My stomach lurched. They'd actually done it. They'd turned an innocent child into a weapon. The same child I'd potty trained, taught to read, comforted through nightmares. I felt Judy's hand tighten in mine. She was piecing together what was happening. Her face showed horror as she realized these people, her blood relatives, were threatening to destroy me for wanting her in my life. I saw her innocence about family crumbling in real time. Michael stepped forward, playing good cop. He suggested a compromise. I could see Judy privately, away from family events. Secret meetings like an affair, hidden relationship like something shameful. The same secrecy they'd forced on my pregnancy 20 years ago. History repeating in the cruelest way. I refused. Patricia immediately made a call. I heard her speaking to someone about concerns for her children's safety. She was loud enough for me to hear every word. She mentioned dates, times, specific incidents that never happened. She'd rehearsed this performance. My mother grabbed my arm, her nails digging in. She hissed about everything they'd done for me, taking me back after my mistake, letting me be part of their children's lives, keeping my secret from the community, as if kidnapping my baby was a favor, as if 20 years of servitude was charity. Judy pulled away from my hand. For a terrifying moment, I thought she was leaving. Instead, she pulled out her phone and started recording. My family froze. They hadn't expected this. Their threats relied on secrecy, on family business staying private. A camera changed everything. Patricia lunged for the phone. Judy stepped back, keeping the camera steady. My sister's mask completely fell. She screamed about privacy, about family loyalty, about ungrateful brats. Every word captured, every threat recorded. The real Patricia, not the perfect mother image she projected. My father tried a different approach. He offered money. $20,000 for Judy to disappear. $30,000. $50,000. Each number made me sicker. They were trying to buy my daughter like a transaction, the same way they'd sold her 20 years ago, only in reverse. Judy kept recording. She asked them to repeat their CPS threat. My family went silent. They looked at each other, realizing their mistake. The coached video of Emma was evidence of their manipulation. Their threats were proof of blackmail. Their offer of money showed consciousness of guilt. Patricia grabbed Emma, trying to leave. The little girl was crying, confused by the adult drama. She reached for me, calling my name. Her mother yanked her away, telling her I was dangerous. The child who'd fallen asleep in my arms hundreds of times was being taught to fear me. My mother changed tactics. She started calling family members, aunts, uncles, cousins, spinning a story about my instability, about Judy being a gold digger, about protecting the children from my delusions. 20 years of being the stable one erased with a few phone calls. Within minutes, my phone exploded with messages. Family members who'd relied on me for decades suddenly concerned about my mental health. People who'd trusted me with their children now questioning my motives. The family network activating like an immune system against a virus. Judy showed me her phone. She'd uploaded the video to a private cloud, multiple copies saved. Smart girl. She'd learned in minutes what took me 20 years to understand. This family operated on threats and image management. Evidence was protection. Patricia made another call, this time to her older kids, the ones at friends' houses. She told them Aunt Sarah had brought a stranger who was making everyone uncomfortable. She instructed them to tell their friends' parents they felt unsafe. More coached lies from innocent mouths. I watched my sister orchestrate this campaign of destruction. The same woman who'd called me crying when her husband had an affair, who'd begged me to watch her kids during her marriage counseling, who'd relied on my discretion and support through every crisis. Now she was my primary destroyer. My father pulled out documents, legal papers he'd prepared in advance, restraining orders with blanks for names and dates, CPS complaint forms already partially filled out, child welfare hotline numbers highlighted. They'd prepared for war while I'd hoped for peace. The doorbell rang. My cousin Alexandra had arrived, summoned by my mother's calls. She looked between Judy and me with confusion. My mother immediately started her performance, tears and trembling voice, painting me as unstable, dangerous, delusional. 20 years of my stability erased by theatrical tears. Alexandra had always been different from the rest. Quieter, more observant. She'd noticed things over the years. How I was always the one watching kids. How I disappeared during my pregnancy. I wonder how Alexandra noticed those patterns from 20 years ago. Did she keep quiet all this time or just now realize what they meant? How I came back broken. She studied the scene with calculating eyes. My mother assigned her a role. Take Judy outside, away from the family drama. Make her comfortable but keep her separated. Alexandra nodded, but I saw something in her expression. A flicker of doubt about the narrative being spun. A crack in the family unity. Patricia escalated again. She called Tom back from the den, telling him to take the kids home immediately. She spoke about getting Emma to a doctor, documenting any signs of trauma, manufacturing evidence in real time. The little girl just wanted to play with her new toys. I felt trapped in a nightmare of my own making. making. Every move I made gave them more ammunition. Staying proved I was unstable. Leaving proved I was guilty. Fighting back proved I was dangerous. Submitting proved they were right. A chess game where every piece was rigged against me. Judy surprised everyone by speaking up. She talked about finding me, about the years she'd searched, about the hole in her life where a birth mother should be, about finally feeling complete. Her words were calm, measured, nothing like the gold digger narrative my family was constructing. My mother's mask slipped. She snapped at Judy about not understanding real family, about blood not meaning anything without loyalty, about some people not deserving second chances. The venom in her voice revealed 20 years of resentment for the granddaughter she'd forced me to give away. Patricia's phone rang, one of her older kids calling back, upset and confused. They didn't want to lie about Aunt Sarah. They loved their aunt. They didn't understand why Mommy was saying these things. Patricia's face darkened as her own children resisted the narrative. She stepped outside to handle the rebellion. Through the window, I could see her pacing, gesticulating wildly, her perfect mother image cracking as her children questioned her lies. The same kids I'd helped raise having more integrity than their mother. My father increased pressure. He showed me printed emails, conversations with his lawyer friend, discussion of mandatory reporting laws, how teachers and daycare workers could lose licenses for unreported suspicions, how my job at the preschool would evaporate with one phone call. 20 years building a career working with children, 20 years of background checks and sterling references, 20 years of parents trusting me with their babies, all of it hanging by a thread my father was ready to cut. The cruelty was breathtaking. Michael surprised me by speaking up. He mentioned how much I'd done for the family, how I'd always been there, how this seemed extreme. My father shut him down with a look that could freeze blood. Even my brother's mild defense was treated as betrayal. Alexandra returned from outside. She'd been talking with Judy, getting her side. Her expression had changed. She looked at my parents with something like disgust. Whatever Judy had told her had shifted her perspective. Another crack in the family wall. Patricia stormed back in, furious. Her older kids were refusing to cooperate. They wanted to come back to the party. They liked their new cousin Judy. They didn't understand why they had to lie. Her perfect control was slipping and she blamed me for it. She grabbed my phone from the counter where I'd set it. Before I could stop her, she was scrolling through my contacts, looking for Jake's number, for Judy's adoptive parents, for anyone she could call to spin her narrative, violating my privacy like it was her right. I snatched it back, but she'd seen enough. She started making threats about contacting my employer, about calling parents from the preschool, about spreading concerns through the mommy network she was part of. My professional life added to the hostage list. My mother played her final card. She mentioned my mental health struggles after giving up Judy, the therapy, the medication, the dark period I'd barely survived. She'd kept records, she said, documentation of my instability, proof that I couldn't be trusted with children. The betrayal hit like a physical blow. She'd driven me to that darkness by stealing my baby, then comforted me through the breakdown she'd caused. Now she was weaponizing my pain against me, using my grief as evidence of unfitness. The circular cruelty was perfect. Judy was still recording. She'd been subtle about it, phone held casually, but the camera captured everything. My family's threats, their admissions, their coordinated attack, evidence of the conspiracy they were building, proof of their willingness to destroy me. Patricia noticed the recording. She demanded Judy delete everything. When Judy refused, my sister threatened to call the police, claim harassment, invasion of privacy, whatever it took. The irony of her claiming victimhood while orchestrating my destruction wasn't lost on anyone. Alexandra spoke up again. She mentioned how she'd always wondered about my pregnancy, how I'd disappeared and come back different, how the timeline of my absence never made sense, how my parents' story had holes. She was piecing together 20 years of lies. My parents turned on her, warning her about family loyalty, about choosing sides, about the consequences of defying them. But Alexandra had inherited the family spine I'd only recently grown. She didn't back down. She kept asking uncomfortable questions. The room felt smaller, tighter. Alliances shifting like sand. My parents and Patricia on one side, Judy and I on another, Alexandra somewhere in between, Michael trying to stay neutral, the younger kids confused and frightened, Tom hiding in the den, a family explosion in slow motion. Patricia made one more desperate play. She pulled up social media on her phone, started crafting a post about family safety, about protecting children from unstable relatives, about difficult decisions parents have to make. Her finger hovered over the share button. I realized she was going nuclear, taking our private war public, destroying my reputation across every platform, making me unemployable, undateable, untouchable. Social media assassination disguised as maternal concern, the modern version of scarlet letters. Judy acted fast. She mentioned she'd already shared the video with her adoptive parents. Her father was a school principal. Her mother was a social worker. Professional mandatory reporters who understood family dynamics, who would recognize coached children and manufactured evidence. The threat landed. My family understood the implications. Their conspiracy required secrecy and control. Outside professionals with expertise in child welfare would see through their lies. Judy had learned to play their game in under an hour. My clever, brave daughter. Patricia's phone rang again. Her kids were in full rebellion. They wanted to come back. The friend's parent was asking questions about the sudden pickup. The story wasn't holding. Children's honesty undermining adult deception. The weapons they'd created turning against them. My mother made a calculated decision. She offered a new deal. I could have a relationship with Judy, but only outside family events. Never at holidays or gatherings. Never around the other children. Segregated like a disease. Separate but unequal. Jim Crow for family relationships. I looked at Judy, my daughter who'd searched for me, who'd stood by me through this ambush, who'd protected us both with quick thinking, who deserved better than shadows and secrecy, who deserved a real family, not this toxic performance. The room waited for my answer. My parents confident, confident I'd accept the crumbs. Patricia sure I'd fold. Michael hoping for peace at any price. Alexandra watching with sharp eyes. Judy holding her breath. Everyone waiting to see if 20 years of conditioning would hold. I thought about every birthday I'd missed. Every Christmas morning without her. Every milestone celebrated with other people's children while mourning my own. 20 years of emptiness they'd created. 20 years of pain they'd enforced. 20 years of servitude they'd demanded. My phone buzzed. A text from someone unexpected. Jake's wife. She'd heard from Judy about the situation. She was offering support. Said she had recordings too from years ago. My parents threatening Jake's family business. Evidence of the original crime. The conspiracy extending decades. Patricia saw my expression change. She sensed the shift in power. Her threats were based on isolation. On me having no support. But Judy had changed that. My daughter had given me something I'd never had before. Allies. Evidence. Options. Hope. The clock on the wall showed an hour had passed since their ultimatum. Their deadline meaningless now. The power dynamics shifted. They'd played their cards too early. Revealed their weapons too completely. Desperation making them sloppy. Fear making them cruel. I stood straighter. 20 years of hunched shoulders slowly unfurling. 20 years of apologetic existence ending. I wasn't the scared teenager they'd sent away. I wasn't the broken woman they'd controlled. I was a mother reunited with her daughter, and I was done being their victim. Patricia made one last grab for control. She announced she was calling CPS herself, right now, reporting me immediately. Her hand shook as she dialed, but she was committed to the performance, mutually assured destruction if she couldn't have complete victory. I felt strangely calm. Let her call. Let them investigate. Let professionals trained in family dynamics examine this situation. Let them interview the children Patricia had coached. Let them see the video evidence. Let them uncover 20 years of manipulation and control. Judy squeezed my hand. We were in this together now. Mother and daughter united after decades of separation. Whatever came next, we'd face it as a team. The family they'd prevented us from being. The bond they'd tried to break. Stronger for having been tested. The phone rang in Patricia's hand. Patricia's kids staging their own little rebellion while she tries to destroy Sarah. The student becomes the teacher when children show more sense than their mother who's literally Googling how to ruin someone's life on Christmas. But it wasn't CPS calling back. It was her oldest child, crying, upset, demanding to know why mommy was lying about Aunt Sarah, why they had to leave the party, why everything was ruined. Children's truth defeating adult deception. Patricia's facade finally cracked completely. She screamed at me. Raw, ugly words about jealousy and resentment. About how I'd ruined her perfect family by bringing my mistake back. About how some people didn't deserve second chances. The real Patricia, stripped of pretense. My mother tried to restore order, ever the image manager. But the performance was over. The masks had slipped. The perfect family revealed as manipulators and blackmailers. Church leaders threatening false accusations. PTA presidents coaching children to lie. Charity organizers operating like crime families. I made my choice. Judy and I headed for the door. My family could make their calls, spread their lies, attempt their destruction, but they couldn't take her from me again. They couldn't steal another 20 years. They couldn't break what had finally been repaired. Patricia blocked our path. Physical intimidation now. But Judy stood tall beside me. 2 generations united against generational dysfunction. We pushed past. Patricia grabbed my arm. Alexandra stepped between us, surprising everyone. Choosing a side. Choosing truth. We reached the door. My father made one last threat about consequences. My mother wailed about family destruction. Patricia promised total war. Michael said nothing. The younger kids cried. 20 years of family unity shattered in an hour. All because I'd chosen my daughter over their control. Outside, the night air felt clean. Judy and I stood on the porch where I'd played as a child. Where I'd dreamed of my own family. Where I'd returned broken after they stole my baby. Now I stood there whole with my daughter beside me, ready for whatever came next. My phone buzzed with messages. Family members choosing sides. Some believing the lies. Others asking questions. The network activating but not uniformly. Cracks in the foundation. Truth has a way of finding light, even through 20 years of carefully constructed darkness. Judy showed me her phone. The video was saved in multiple places. Insurance against their threats. Evidence of their true nature. Protection for both of us. My smart technological daughter using modern tools against ancient manipulation. David's sling in the digital age. We walked to our cars. Behind us, the house erupted in arguments. Patricia's voice carrying through windows. My parents trying to strategize. Alexandra apparently holding her ground. Michael finally picking a side. The family meeting continuing without us. The real conversation beginning. I knew this wasn't over. They'd follow through on some threats. There would be investigations, rumors, professional challenges. 20 years of control wouldn't end cleanly, but I had something now I'd never had before. My daughter, the truth, allies, evidence, hope. Judy hugged me in the driveway. Our first real embrace without observers or time limits. Mother and daughter reconnecting despite decades of separation. The family they'd tried to prevent. The bond they'd tried to break. Love stronger than their hatred. Truth stronger than their lies. We drove away in separate cars, but together in purpose. Whatever came next, we'd face it united. The war my family declared would be fought on multiple fronts, but I wouldn't fight it alone. 20 years of isolation had ended. 20 years of servitude was over. 20 years of silence had broken. The rearview mirror showed the house getting smaller. The prison I'd lived in for 2 decades. The place where they'd controlled and manipulated and used me. Now just a building full of people scrambling to maintain their crumbling narrative. Their power over me finally ending. My phone rang. Alexandra. She'd left too. She was offering support, sharing her own observations from over the years. Another ally in the coming battle. My family's unified front fracturing. Truth spreading like cracks in ice. The thaw beginning after 20 years of frozen dysfunction. I drove home with my hands hands gripping the steering wheel. Behind me, Judy followed in her own car. Every few seconds, I checked the rearview mirror, making sure she was still there, making sure this wasn't another dream that would dissolve when I woke up. My phone lit up constantly on the passenger seat. Text after text, call after call, the family network in full activation mode. I ignored them all. 20 years of jumping when they called had ended tonight. We pulled into my driveway. The small house I'd bought with years of babysitting money and preschool teacher wages. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. A place my family rarely visited because it wasn't impressive enough for their standards. Judy parked beside me. We sat in our cars for a moment, processing what had just happened. Through the windshield, I watched her take deep breaths. My brave daughter, who'd stood up to people she'd never met before tonight, who'd protected us both with quick thinking and modern technology. Inside, I turned on lights and tried to make the place welcoming. Judy had been here once before, during our first meeting, but tonight felt different. Tonight, she wasn't a guest. She was family, real family, not the performance we'd just escaped. She settled on my couch while I made tea. My hands shook as I filled the kettle. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving behind a strange mix of fear and freedom. In the living room, Judy was still checking her phone, making sure the videos were safely backed up. My phone rang again. Alexandra's name on the screen. I answered this time. She was parked down the street from my parents' house, giving me updates. The argument had escalated after we left. Patricia's husband had finally emerged from the den, demanding to know why his children were so upset. The perfect family facade was crumbling from within. Alexandra told me she'd confronted my parents about my pregnancy, about the timeline that never made sense, about how I'd left healthy and returned broken. My mother had tried to spin it, but Alexandra wasn't buying it anymore. 20 years of carefully constructed lies were unraveling. I hung up and found Judy looking at old photo albums I kept on the coffee table. Pictures from before. Me and Jake at prom, my 17th birthday party, the last photos before everything changed. She traced her finger over her father's face, seeing the resemblance I'd noticed the moment I found her. My phone buzzed with an email. Patricia had made good on one threat at least. A message to my employer, expressing concerns about my mental stability and fitness to work with children. I forwarded it to Judy, adding it to our evidence collection. Patricia didn't know my boss had already dealt with vindictive parents before. She also didn't know I'd been named Teacher of the Year twice. Judy showed me her phone. Her adoptive parents were asking questions. They'd seen the video she'd shared and were horrified. Her adoptive mother, the social worker, recognized the signs immediately. Coached children, manufactured evidence, family manipulation. She offered to write a statement if needed. Another text from Alexandra. Patricia's older children had returned to the house with their friend's parent. The parent wanted to know why the children were so distressed about leaving the party, why they kept saying their mom was lying about Aunt Sarah. Patricia's story was falling apart. I made more tea while Judy explored my house. She found the room I'd always thought of as hers. Not a shrine, just a space I'd kept ready. A desk for studying. Bookshelves filled with classics I'd wanted to share with her. A bed with a quilt I'd made during those dark months after she was taken. My doorbell rang. We both froze. Through the peephole, I saw Michael standing on my porch. Alone. No parents, no Patricia. Just my brother looking uncomfortable and conflicted. I opened the door but didn't invite him in. He handed me an envelope. Inside, a check for $5,000. His personal account, not family money. He mumbled something about it being overdue. Payment for 2 decades of babysitting his kids. A small gesture, but significant from someone who'd spent the evening trying to stay neutral. After he left, Judy and I sat together on the couch. She showed me more messages. Jake's wife had sent additional evidence. Screenshots from 20 years ago. Threatening messages my parents had sent to Jake's family. Proof that they'd orchestrated our separation through intimidation and economic threats. My phone rang. My boss from the preschool. She'd received Patricia's email and wanted to check on me. I gave her a brief summary of the situation. She laughed, actually laughed at the idea of me being unfit to work with children. She'd already responded to Patricia, citing my impeccable record and suggesting any false accusations would be met with legal action. Alexandra arrived an hour later. She looked exhausted but determined. The family meeting had devolved into chaos after we left. Patricia's husband had taken the kids home after learning about the coached video. He was furious about Emma being used that way. My parents were in damage control mode, trying to prevent more defections. She'd brought something with her, a box from my parents' attic. Inside, documents they'd hidden, papers from the adoption, medical records from my pregnancy, photos they'd taken before sending me away, evidence of the original crime, saved by their own need to document everything. Judy went through the papers with the careful attention of someone piecing together their origin story. There were ultrasound images, hospital bracelets, a footprint card, all the mementos parents usually treasure, hidden away like shameful secrets. Her hands trembled as she held them. My phone lit up with a call from Patricia's husband, Tom. Patricia's kids basically became tiny detectives who solved the case before any adults could. Sometimes the truth just needs someone under 4 feet tall to point it out and watch everything fall apart beautifully. I let it go to voicemail. His message was brief but clear. He was taking the kids to his mother's house. He needed time to process what Patricia had done. He apologized for not speaking up sooner. Another family fractured by truth. Alexandra shared more details about the aftermath. My mother had tried calling various family members, but the story wasn't holding. Too many people had questions now. Too many inconsistencies were surfacing. The network that had activated against me was starting to turn inward. She mentioned something else. My father's lawyer friend had backed out. Once he heard about the recorded evidence, the coached children, the documented threats, he wanted no part of it. Even he could see this was a family using legal systems for personal vendettas. No legitimate case existed. Judy decided to stay the night. We made up the bed in her room, the room I'd been preparing for 20 years without realizing it. As she settled in, she asked if I had more photos from when I was pregnant. I retrieved a small album I'd hidden away. The only pictures pictures I had from those 7 months. We sat on her bed looking through them. Me with a growing belly. Me painting a nursery at my aunt's house. Me holding tiny clothes I'd bought with my babysitting money. The hope in my young face was painful to see, knowing what was coming, but Judy studied each photo like it was precious. My phone buzzed with another update from Alexandra. Patricia had shown up at my parents' house alone, furious that Tom had taken the kids. She was blaming everyone but herself. My parents were trying to calm her down, but their control was slipping. The puppet strings they'd pulled for decades were tangling. I showed Judy more photos, this time from after. The hollow look in my eyes at Patricia's wedding, the forced smile at Michael's college graduation, the way I held their babies like they might be taken from me too. 20 years of grief hidden in plain sight, visible now that she knew what to look for. Alexandra texted again. Some cousins were starting to ask questions. Why had I disappeared during senior year? Why did I look so different when I came back? Why was I always available to babysit but never had kids of my own? The family narrative was developing cracks. Judy fell asleep holding the ultrasound photo. I tucked her in like I dreamed of doing when she was little. Then I sat in the living room with Alexandra, planning next steps. She'd already consulted a lawyer friend, a real one. We had options. The evidence was overwhelming. My phone showed missed calls from my parents, 18 from my mother, 12 from my father. They were panicking now. Their threats had backfired. Their weapons had turned against them. Their perfect family image was crumbling. But I felt no satisfaction, just exhaustion. Alexandra left near midnight. She promised to keep monitoring the situation, to be my eyes and ears in the family chaos, to stand with us when the dust settled. I locked the door behind her and checked on Judy one more time. She was sleeping peacefully, the ultrasound still clutched in her hand. I finally listened to one voicemail from my mother. Her voice was different, the commanding tone replaced by something desperate. She mentioned reconciliation, family therapy, working things out. 20 years too late for solutions that should have been offered to a scared pregnant teenager. In my bedroom, I pulled out a journal I'd kept hidden. 20 years of entries about the daughter I'd lost, dreams I'd had about her, milestones I'd imagined, conversations I'd practiced, all the motherhood I'd experienced only in my mind. Tomorrow I'd share it with Judy if she wanted to read it. My phone buzzed one last time. A text from Jake's wife. She'd found more evidence. Photos from the hospital the day Judy was born. She'd been there, a friend of Jake's sister. She'd witnessed my parents' behavior, seen how they'd isolated me, watched them take my baby while I was still medicated. Another witness to their cruelty. I turned off my phone and tried to sleep. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. My family wouldn't give up easily. There would be investigations to face, lies to counter, relationships to rebuild or end. 20 years of control wouldn't dissolve overnight. But tonight, my daughter was sleeping safely in the next room. The house felt different with her in it, fuller, more complete, like a puzzle piece had finally clicked into place after decades of searching. I'd lost 20 years, but I wouldn't lose another day. Whatever came next, we'd face it together. Mother and daughter, finally united despite everyone who'd tried to keep us apart. Morning came too soon. I woke to the smell of coffee. Judy was in the kitchen making breakfast. She'd found eggs and bread, creating something simple but perfect. We ate together at my small table, planning our day. She had classes to attend. I had work to face. Normal life continuing despite the family explosion. Before leaving, she hugged me tight. A real embrace, not the careful ones from our first meetings. She whispered that she was proud of me, proud that I'd stood up to them, proud that I'd chosen her. The words healed something deep inside me. My daughter was proud of me. Nothing else mattered. I drove to work wondering what awaited me, but my boss greeted me with coffee and support. Patricia's email had accomplished the opposite of its intent. My colleagues were rallying around me. Parents were expressing outrage that someone would try to weaponize child protection services. My job was safe. Throughout the day, I received messages of support from coworkers who'd noticed my sadness over the years, from parents who trusted me with their children, from friends who'd wondered about my past. The truth was bringing unexpected allies. My family's isolation tactics had failed. That evening, Judy returned. We established a routine without discussing it. Dinner together, homework at the kitchen table, talking about our days like we'd always done this, like 20 years hadn't been stolen from us. We were writing our own story now, creating the relationship my family had tried to prevent. My phone stayed mostly silent. The family bombardment had slowed. They were regrouping, probably planning their next move. But I had something now I'd never had before. Evidence. Allies. My daughter. The truth. Their weapons were useless against reality. Their threats empty against documented facts. A week passed. Then 2. Judy came by most evenings. We were learning each other in small moments. How she took her coffee, her favorite TV shows, the way she laughed at bad jokes. All the little things mothers usually learn over years, compressed into precious days, making up for lost time. Patricia's marriage was struggling. Tom had filed for separation. He'd learned about other lies, other manipulations. The coached video of Emma was the final straw. He wanted full custody. Patricia was fighting it, but her credibility was shot. The perfect mother image she'd cultivated was in ruins. My parents tried new tactics, flowers delivered to my work, cards about forgiveness, messages through relatives about healing the family, but they never acknowledged what they'd done, never apologized for stealing my baby, never admitted to 20 years of manipulation. They wanted reconciliation without accountability. Some family members reached out privately, cousins who'd always wondered, aunts who'd noticed things. They shared their own stories of control and manipulation. My situation had opened floodgates. Other family secrets were surfacing. The perfect family mythology was crumbling from multiple directions. Judy met with her adoptive parents. They were supportive of our relationship. They'd always told her she could search for me when she was ready. They welcomed me into their extended family. No threats, no ultimatums, just acceptance and understanding. Everything my own family had withheld. Work became a refuge. The children in my class didn't care about family drama. They needed stories read and shoes tattoos tied, and scraped knees bandaged. I threw myself into teaching with renewed purpose. These children weren't substitutes anymore. They were simply kids who needed care, and I could provide it freely. Alexandra remained my strongest ally. She documented everything, kept records of every threat, every lie, every manipulation attempt. She'd appointed herself family historian, but the real version, the truth keeper. She was writing down stories others had been afraid to tell for years. 3 months later, I stood in my kitchen making dinner for Judy and her adoptive parents. They were coming to celebrate her 21st birthday, a milestone I'd missed 20 others of, but was here for now. The cake I'd baked sat on the counter. Happy birthday, Judy, written in careful letters. My phone rang. My mother again. This time I answered. She sounded older, tired. Patricia was losing custody. The family was divided. The reputation they'd protected so fiercely was destroyed. She wanted to know if I was happy, if destroying the family had been worth it. I told her I hadn't destroyed anything. I'd simply chosen my daughter. They'd made their choices 20 years ago. Choices that prioritized reputation over relationships, control over compassion, image over family. I'd finally made a different choice, one that prioritized love over fear. She hung up without saying goodbye. It would be the last time we spoke. My parents would retreat into their smaller world. Patricia would lose custody and blame everyone but herself. Michael would maintain distant contact. The family would continue, fractured and reduced. But that wasn't my concern anymore. Judy arrived with her adoptive parents. They brought gifts and laughter. We ate dinner around my small table, 4 people creating the family moment I dreamed of. No threats, no ultimatums, no conditions. Just parents and their daughter, celebrating another year of life. Simple, normal, perfect. Later, as we cleaned up, Judy pulled me aside. She thanked me for fighting for her, for choosing her over them, for being brave when it would have been easier to comply. She said she loved me. 3 words I'd waited 21 years to hear. 3 words that made every battle worth it. I went to bed that night thinking about time, 20 years lost, but hopefully 40 or 50 years ahead. Years to know my daughter, to be part of her life, to watch her grow and succeed and maybe have children of her own. Children who would know their grandmother from the beginning, the cycle broken. My family had stolen 2 decades, but they couldn't steal what came next. Judy and I were writing our own story now, one without secrets or shame, without control or manipulation, just a mother and daughter finding their way back to each other, building something new from the ruins of what should have been. The rest could fall where it would. Investigations would clear my name. Patricia's lies would be exposed. My parents would face the consequences of their choices. The family reputation they'd protected so fiercely would crumble, but none of that mattered anymore. I had my daughter, she had her mother, we had each other. After 20 years of serving a family that saw me as convenient help, I'd finally chosen myself, chosen Judy, chosen truth over reputation, love over control. It hadn't been easy. The price had been high. But sitting at my kitchen table with my daughter, celebrating the life they'd tried to erase, I knew I'd make the same choice again. The war was over. We'd won simply by refusing to let them separate us again, by standing together against generational dysfunction, by choosing love over fear. The family they'd prevented us from being for 20 years was finally real, different than I'd dreamed at 17, better than they'd ever allowed. Ours. Subscribe for content just like this. I really enjoy putting together these videos for you all.